Hi, everybody. Welcome to session 3 of our March Caregiver Education Series. I'm so thrilled to have Mary Catherine back presenting for us today on dealing with anger and other challenging emotions. So Mary Catherine Lundquist has over 28 years of clinical and administrative experience in geriatrics, specializing in dementia care, supporting family caregivers, training professionals, and providing community health education. She is currently the program coordinator of COPSA, Comprehensive Services on Aging, Institute for Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders at Rutgers Health University Behavioral Healthcare. COPSA includes the Memory Disorders Clinic, the Care to Caregivers Helpline, and COPSA Consultation and Education Services. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Catherine.
Thank you, Marlene, and welcome, friends. I'm so glad that you're able to join us here today. We have an hour to be together to hopefully pick up some tips that are going to help support us as we go about caring for someone who has memory loss and maybe other complex needs as well. So we know that we experience stress, right? Anybody here experiencing stress, give me a hand wave. Probably all of us at some point, right? It can be a chronic thing. And when we're stressed over a long period of time, it can make us tired. We can feel overwhelmed. We can lose our patience. Anybody here lose their patience recently? For many of us, yes, I see some hand waving there. For many of us, it could be a couple times during the day and sometimes even at night if we're up supporting someone at night, right? So many family caregivers report that sometimes they feel moody, they feel helpless, and hey, we get short-tempered. We wish we didn't, but we do. So sometimes we say things that we regret and then we feel bad about that. So I want everybody to know as we're getting started here that this is common. Many of us who are caregivers experience this. So you're not alone and there isn't anything wrong with you. It's just part of being human. So today we're going to talk about some ways that we can manage some of these strong emotions like anger that kind of creep up for us throughout the day. We're going to talk about things that we can do to avoid having these feelings, things that we can do to care for ourselves when we are having these feelings. And then hopefully we're going to have a little bit of time to talk about what can we do to kind of prevent these things from happening that kind of make us angry or get us really, really upset. So thank you everybody for being here. Please use your chat to communicate with us. We do have a smaller group here today. So at Marlene's discretion, if anybody wants to share when I ask a question, you're welcome to unmute your microphone and do that. We might just have to get Marlene to give you permission to do that as well. But we learn from each other. Everybody here is an expert on this topic because we're doing it every day. So we'd love for everyone to share their wisdom with us. So our roadmap for today that we're hoping by the end of this presentation, you're going to be able to describe some triggers that cause you to lose your cool. And that's different for all of us, right? All based on what our personal circumstances are. We hope you're going to learn how to use some self-calming strategies. We hope you'll be able to plan ahead to reduce or avoid any triggers that are currently getting you angry now. And we hope that you'll be able to think about how you can build in daily activities that build patience for you, strengthen your willpower, and help you feel strong for everything that you do have to face. So I love this image of the bag of marbles here because look at there are so many marbles in here, right? And they're all different colors. And sometimes our emotions are like this, right? Sometimes we're carrying a lot around with us and it's in our pocket. Some of us might even have a backpack, right? And it's strapped on our back and it's full of emotions. So emotions can be very complex. So sometimes we might have one and we can easily identify what that is, but sometimes we can feel multiple things at the same time. Stop and think for a moment in your life when you were in a recent situation and you felt some strong emotions. Do you remember, was it just one thing that you were feeling, or was it maybe multiple things that you were feeling? I'm thinking of some caregivers who we support and stories that they've told us, and they'll explain a situation that happened, like maybe where their spouse couldn't do something that they used to be able to do before. And the caregiver reports that they get really, really mad, because their loved one just isn't able to help out around the house. But at the same time, they're also feeling really, really sad because their loved one isn't the person who they used to be. So sometimes our emotions kind of come in layers, right? And they're all mixed in there together. And all that being mixed in together can kind of, be overwhelming. So, in addition to recalling that we have lots of different emotions, it's also important for us to remember that emotions are states of mind, right? They change. They're going to come and they're going to go. So, think about your day to day for a minute. How did you feel this morning when you woke up? Just think to yourself. You don't have to share in chat unless you want to. If it helps you when you want to write down some things when you're, sitting there on a piece of paper that you want to, think about for later, please feel free to go ahead and do that as well. But think about how you felt this morning and then think about how you feel now. It may be different. So our emotions can kind of come and go, and they're different for all of us. Many of us could be in the same situation and have different feelings and emotions that crop up. So stress emotions in particular, stress is a big one, and we all kind of waved our hand that lots of us are experiencing that. Stress and all of our different emotions are really helpful things for us to pay attention to. Why? Because they have a purpose, especially these strong emotions here like fear and anger and joy and sadness. They are telling us things that are important to help us stay alive. We always go back to the example of the tiger here, right? If there's a tiger chasing you, you're being threatened, right? So your stress emotions and your fear are going to crop up, and it's going to compel you to do something very quickly to keep yourself safe, right? So that's an extreme kind of physical example. But all the other emotions that we feel as well throughout the day are messengers. They are there to tell us something that is important. This is evolutionary. There's nothing that we can do about this. All of our feelings serve a purpose for us. So, thinking about our emotions and our feelings in this way can help give us a little bit of distance, and it can help us to observe what is going on for us, which may help us figure out the best way to react. Instead of just reacting right away, stopping and thinking and observing may open up some space so we can think about a better response that will serve us and also serve the relationship and the person who we are caring for as well. So, second thing, great for us to remember that all of our feelings and our emotions serve an evolutionary purpose. They are there to help us. We don't have to be afraid of them. We don't have to push them aside. We can hopefully learn how to listen to them. Now, although there are a few basic emotions, we just looked at a few here, right? Fear, anger, sadness, and joy. Our feelings are actually much more complex than that. So this is a really helpful way for us to look at our feelings. This is a feeling wheel illustration, and you are going to get this afterwards. Everything that we are talking about here today is in a nice handout, and it includes a really nice large size of this feeling wheel. So you can take this, keep it with you. Marlene's going to send this to you, and then you can look at it, and it's going to help you figure out what you might be feeling in the moment. So let's take a minute and let's look at MAD. You see where MAD is there in the middle? It's the red one. So sometimes we might just say that we're mad, right? But when we look at this diagram, we see that MAD has lots of different shades to it. It could be rage, which is really, really strong, right? It could be hurt, where we feel like someone injured us. We could be feeling hostile, or it could be criticism. We could be feeling, very critical. So those are different shades. If we move further out on the wheel, we see even more descriptive words, such as frustrated, furious, or irritated. Now, they're all in the MAD family, but they're a little bit different in intensity and meaning. Let's move over and let's look at sad. And sad is right over to the left of there. For instance, we may say that we are sad, but if we stop and think about it, we may further describe the exact feeling. Am I feeling lonely? Is that what this sadness means? Am I feeling ashamed? Maybe it's guilt. Maybe I'm feeling inadequate. Or maybe I'm just feeling miserable all over. So sometimes, and maybe many times, we can feel many things at the same time or within a quick succession of each other. So sometimes it's just good for us to be aware of this, that feelings are exist in various shades and various degrees. So stopping to identify and describe our feelings can give us a little bit more perspective. So something that happened recently to me was I was with my dad and we were trying to clean out his office, and we were looking at pictures, from years ago. And I came home after being with him and I just felt really, really depressed. And then I thought to myself, well, I asked myself, what am I feeling? Tell me more about that. And, I was able to identify that I'm really missing those days from years gone past when everybody was together and everybody was here. There were lots of people in those pictures who had died, and I was really grieving for them, like all over again, missing the way things used to be. So I was able to kind of put some more words onto that, that it wasn't just depression or sadness, but it was really, grieving and being nostalgic as well. And maybe you have an instance in your life like that too, where you felt something. And when you reflect on it more, you can kind of add some more words to that. So this is a very helpful way for us to think about our feelings. Now, as we continue and talk about our feelings, we're discussing this related to us as caregivers, right? And what we go through. But we also have to remember that the person who we support who has memory loss also has a very wide range of feelings. Just because we're having cognitive problems or problems with our behavior and we're changing, we might be losing our language, we still have a full range of feelings and emotion. It becomes more problematic because our family members and our loved ones who have the memory loss may not be able to articulate how they are feeling. So sometimes they're going to act out, right? They might feel afraid and they can't tell us that. So they might get angry when we're asking them to come use the bathroom or trying to get them to take a shower and we're kind of approaching them. They may not understand, they might get really upset, and they may lash out at us because they don't have language or they might not have the insight to kind of express how they are feeling. So all these things that we're talking about also relate to the people who we are supporting. So as we learn to hold more space for ourselves and our feelings and emotions, it's good for us to be able to learn how to hold that same space for the people who we are supporting, who have even more challenges in kind of processing their emotions as well. So sometimes helpful things that we can say to our loved ones when we see that they're really struggling or they're having an intense emotion is just to validate what we're noticing, saying something like, I see you're really struggling. Just something simple like that to acknowledge what you are seeing with them can really help diffuse a situation so they don't get angry and they don't yell at you or they don't go to strike you or they don't try to run out of the house as well. Or something like, I sense this is really hard for you right now. Or it seems that you may be feeling really sad. I will stay right here with you while you are sad. So that's a real gift that we can offer to our loved one. And hopefully these are things that we're going to be able to offer more to ourselves too, because we need to offer ourselves that same type of presence as well with our feelings. So let's ask our friends who are here with us today, when do you get angry? I'd love to hear some examples. Maybe it's something that happened today, maybe it's something that happened in the past week or the past month, but when was a situation where you felt angry, or what are some things that make you angry when you are providing support for your loved one? And feel free to type in chat. And Marlene, if you want to unmute anybody, if anybody has their hand up, if you can see everybody, I can't see everybody. I'm completely open to that. Did Mary Ellen want to share something?
I did. I feel angry when my husband refuses to do anything I suggest that could be helpful to him. He says no to every intervention, to every offer of help, assistance in the house, any treat. He just says no to everything.
Right. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for sharing that. So when you get resistance from your loved one, when you are doing everything you can to keep them safe and keep them happy. Very frustrating. Thank you for sharing that, Mary Ellen. Can anybody else relate to that here? Give us a hand wave. Lily looks like she gave us a thumbs up for that one. How about some other things from our friends who are here today? What is something that makes you angry?
Raymond, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Raymond. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if I would frame it as anger, but it's definitely frustration. Like I found out that I can't take my wife with me when I go shopping, like at ShopRite, because I'll make a list up in the car and I tell her, I say, I have a list now, we're going to follow the list. And she says, I got my own list in my head. I said, but no, but she'll go down the aisle and she picks up everything. I'm constantly putting things back. So I can't take her when I go shopping anymore, because it's a no win, you know. And she'll get angry, and then the next half hour she's fine. And now we played 500 rummy all through our lives, and we'll still play 500 rummy, and she beats me very, very soundly in 500 rummy. She's got those combinations, you know. And then I'm 81 and she's 79, right? And she's talking about sex like when we were teenagers. I wanted 5 times a week. I'm laughing, right? And I know this is not real, but I'm just saying. So now I don't know. I guess I recognize that I'm in a new area, in a new arena in my life, and I have to have acceptance.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, you know. I guess this is going to get worse, right? It's not going to get better.
Well, Raymond, thank you for sharing all of those excellent examples and all those things that are very frustrating for you, especially when you can't do things that you used to be able to do with your wife that become very frustrating, and also all the other ways that our relationships change, right? And I'm sure many of our friends here today can relate to the examples that you shared. So thank you for sharing those. But yes, things do get challenging as we support someone who is experiencing cognitive and behavioral problems. But everybody who is here today, you have the ability and the capacity to kind of grow and develop so you can safely take care of yourself and them throughout the life of your loved one's illness. All right, everybody here is smart, you're emotionally intelligent, and you are here today. You're signing up to connect with supporters. So this is so very, very important. So have confidence that you are going to get through this. So, and the stuff that we're going to learn today, you can apply to everything that you're going to experience in your caregiving life. So thank you, Raymond, for sharing that with us. So, and I'm sure we all have examples like this, times when we do get angry or frustrated. So anybody else, if you want to type anything in chat, go ahead and type that in there for us. If you don't want to share anything with us, just keep that in your mind about the times when you do get angry. So because we know that they are frequent for us as well.
Can Larry mention something?
Oh, please, Larry. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
What frustrates me is I'm sitting at the dinner table, and instead of my wife sitting down eating with me, she'll be like in the closet rearranging the glasses and doing this and doing that. And then the drawers, I said, why don't you just sit down? So, oh, I just want to straighten things out. And invariably, when I look for certain things, they're not there anymore. And then in our bathroom, like we have a drawer with a divider, and there are a lot of times where suddenly I find her things on my side, and then I can't finding my things, and it's like she's constantly rearranging things, and I'm a human being. I react at times, and I'm not happy about it, but so.
Right. Thank you, Larry. Excellent example. Maybe some of our other friends here today can relate to what Larry is experiencing as well. When your loved one won't listen, when you're asking them to do something simple as sit down and have a meal, and when they're moving stuff all day long and you can't stop them. So, so thank you, Larry, for sharing that. And Doris is sharing with us, similar to what has been said. Also, my father refuses to be prepared for doctor's appointments and gets mad at me as if it's my appointment. Yes. So these things just boggle our minds, right? Everything is kind of our fault. And our friend, Mosi, am I pronouncing your name right? Anybody, please correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I love the examples. They are so real. So thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Please, yes.
I love Larry and your Robert, the examples, because when somebody else verbalizes what they're feeling and the frustration of you not having your thing here where you put it and what you're talking about not going to shop right, it is so powerful for me to hear you two share that. Okay. I just want you to know how much I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So see, everybody, you're already making a difference. We're here, and when we're honest about what we're dealing with, it really makes an impact on other people. It gives us all permission, right? When we hear other people talking about this, you know, we could be dealing with our frustration all day long and think we're the only one, but hey, this is universal. Lots of caregivers are mad because their loved one is moving everything all day long and then saying they never touched it. Right. So it can be maddening. And like as Raymond said, sometimes it can come and go for them. They might be able to do some things really well and other things they just can't do anymore. That's frustrating for us. So thank you everybody for sharing these examples. So very, very helpful. So we're going to talk about some strategies that we can use, whether it's anger that we're dealing with, because many of us deal with that. It might be intense sadness that we're going to experience, or it could be loss. It could be lots of different things. So all of these techniques we're going to talk about, we're going to be able to use to help us manage all the feelings that we do have. So the first thing that we're going to review is just being self-aware. This is a great place to start. And this is actually a part of mindfulness. You know, that's all that mindfulness is. It's just being aware. It's not clearing your mind. It's not going to a quiet place, you know, although that's great if you can do that, but just being aware and noticing and observing is our first step to being able to manage our feelings. So, you know, noticing gives us a chance to kind of label things. So I'd like to try a little practice. If everybody could indulge me here for a few minutes, and let's try this together. Okay, so you don't have to do anything, just stay where you are. You don't need anything. So let's just everybody sit comfortably and let your shoulders drop. And if you want to, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. You can keep them open. You can gaze down in front of you with a soft focus if you want to. And as you're sitting here, just notice where your body is making contact. Do you feel your feet touching the floor? Maybe you feel your back on the chair, your sit bones on your chair. And now just notice your breath. For the next few breaths, just pay attention to your breath coming in and your breath going out. You don't have to do anything special, just notice your breath. Now shift your awareness from your breath to your body and begin to scan through your body slowly from your head down to your toes and observe any feelings or emotions that are present for you. You might detect many feelings or emotions throughout your body, but for us right now, just choose one feeling or emotion to focus on. And notice where in your body this emotion is located. What part of the body is holding this feeling? How big or small is the feeling? And where are its edges? Are the edges sharp? Are the edges soft? Does the feeling have a color? And if so, is the color changing or remaining the same? Is the feeling heavy or light? Is the feeling moving or is it still? Is the feeling hard or soft? Rough or smooth? If I could touch this feeling with my hand, what would its texture be like? Now, if you were to give a name to this feeling or emotion, what would you call it? Can you identify it? And can you give it a label? If a name for this feeling doesn't come to your mind, that's all right. Be kind to yourself and just observe the feeling in your body with curiosity and without judgment. When you feel that you've reached a level of comfort and understanding with this feeling, let's come back in a few breaths and open our eyes and come back to our Zoom room. So welcome back from that little exercise, friends. I'd love to hear, did anything come up for anyone? Anything that anybody wants to share? Were you able to identify a feeling or emotion somewhere in your body, and what was it like?
Raymond here. I had a feeling of anxiety. Um, I don't know, it wasn't sharp, but I've had this feeling before, and it's like kind of being helpless. You know, I'm anxious, but I don't have the answers. That was my anxiety.
Right. Thank you, Raymond, for sharing that. Thank you. How about some of our other friends here today? Anything that kind of came up for you? Anything, descriptive words that came to you about what you were feeling? Mary Ellen. Oh, Mary Ellen, let's get you to unmute there.
I feel anger because I feel trapped. I feel like I don't have that much more life left in me, and I am spending it in this fairly miserable experience, and it's very hard to go out and satisfy myself for myself because I feel obligated and responsible, and I know I should move away a little bit more, but it's just hard.
It's hard. So it's a pretty intense and ongoing and, kind of gripping feeling that you're having. And I'm sure many of our friends here today can relate to what you just shared as
I mean,
well.
you lose your own life
Right. So sometimes you feel like you're being swallowed by the caregiving, and this feeling kind of takes over everything. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for sharing that. And one of our Patricia is sharing, I feel I have a lot to do, but not enough time and energy to do it all. So yes, I think many of us can relate to that as well. So thank you everybody for participating in that. But that's just a simple exercise that we can do on a regular basis, especially when we are feeling overwhelmed, because as our friend shared, these are big feelings, right? So, but just stopping to take that pause just for a moment, just to check in with ourselves to say, how am I feeling right now? And then trying to put a name to it. That is the first step that we can take to help us manage our feelings. And then the second thing that we can do once we identify them, or even just spend time acknowledging that we're having these strong feelings, is just to observe them non-judgmentally. And what does that mean? It just means not to call it a good feeling, a bad feeling, a positive feeling, or a negative feeling. It's just a feeling, and it's just an emotion, and try to detach ourselves from it a little bit. For many of us, I know for myself, I have pretty strong narratives in my head, and I spend a lot of time beating myself up, especially if I'm feeling a certain way. You know, I have so much to do right now, it's just unreal. And I beat myself up at the end of every day for all the stuff that I didn't get done. You know, when it's unrealistic that I'm going to get even half of that stuff done. So if you're like me, you give yourself a judgmental narrative about what you are and what you aren't doing and how well you're doing it. So we all do that. So we can help ourselves by just observing what we're feeling and not attaching any meaning to it. Just saying, I'm feeling really anxious right now. And don't say anything else about it. Or I'm feeling very overwhelmed, like I have so much to do. I'm feeling a lot of pressure. And then not saying anything good or bad about it, just letting it be where it is. This is a great thing for us to try. So sometimes if the feelings are really strong, like we're really angry in the moment, or maybe we're really overcome with sadness and we're just going to start to cry, or we're going to fall apart, we can try some self-regulating techniques, especially if you're going head to head with your loved one in a caregiving situation. We might need to do things in that moment, right here and now, to keep everybody safe. The first thing that we can do is just to remove ourselves. Right? If you feel like you're going to start screaming, or you might lash out and, hit someone or throw someone, stopping to observe, to identify where we're feeling, not judging ourselves. And then maybe that'll give us that moment to say, okay, I'm just going to walk out of the room for 1 minute, go on the other side of the door. If I'm having that strong anger feeling, just remove yourself for 1 minute. On the other side of the door, shut the door, make sure your loved one is safe before you leave, and then walk back in 2 minutes. I think one of our friends mentioned that there might be something that goes on with the person you're caring for. You're all upset. Your loved one doesn't remember that 5 minutes later. You do. You're still carrying all the residual stuff from that. You're not. So remove yourself. That's a great self-calming technique that we can use in the heat of the moment. A second thing that we can do on the other side of that door, once we've removed ourselves, is just take a moment and watch your breath come in and watch your breath go out. That gets us out of our minds, where everything's kind of bubbling and circling and feeding into the intensity of the moment, and it gets us back into our bodies, and that can anchor us. So sometimes walking out of the room might work for you. Sometimes walking out of the room might not work for you. So if you can't walk out of the room, you can stay in the room and maybe don't say anything and just watch your breath come in for a deep breath and then watch it go out. And that might give you a little bit of space to kind of collect yourself and think before you move on to the next thing, like yelling at someone or throwing something at someone. So, and these are easy, simple things, you can do them right in the moment on the fly. And then the third thing that we can do that could be a self-calming technique is to get a physical release, especially if it's an intense emotion like anger and it just kind of builds up in us and we're carrying it. That can make us anxious. So sometimes doing something like walking up and down the steps, go up and down the steps once. That might help us release some of that intense emotion. Walking around your kitchen table or your dining room table, if it's safe for you to go outside and walk down the street, by all means do that. Do a jumping jack or two. That could kind of, bring the anxiety or the anger level down a little bit. Or go and splash cold water on your face. Something like that just might snap you out of it. And that might give you a little bit of relief in the moment. So does anybody have anything that they do to kind of calm themselves down in the heat of the moment, in addition to these things that we talked about? Anything that you'd like to share on that? Oh, our friend Doris is sharing, yep, I go to their balcony or leave the room. All right, so Doris is already doing that, going to another space. How about anybody else? Is there anything that you're doing on a regular basis to kind of help calm you down immediately in that moment? Keep thinking about that, all right? So if you think about anything later, share with us in chat, but those are things we can do in the exact moment. So, and another thing that we can do is an attitude that we have about ourselves when we're angry. We can not beat ourselves up for being angry. We can have some compassion for ourselves. So sometimes this doesn't come naturally, right? Sometimes we're more prone to say, mean things to ourselves about the way we feel, but it's really important for us to be kind to ourselves. When we're really mad, instead of saying, what's wrong with me? I'm the worst caregiver on the face of the earth. I can't believe I'm mad about this. I know they can't help that they're sick. Just taking a moment and saying, I am suffering right now. I am really angry right now, and I am suffering right now. And then reminding ourselves that suffering is a part of life. Everybody suffers. Anybody who was in my situation, anybody who was, as Raymond shared before, like grocery shopping, with my spouse, and, things aren't going well at the grocery store because of their memory issues, anybody would get upset about that. So it's completely natural the way we feel in these situations. And then offer ourselves some kindness, that just as we would to a friend who was going through a similar situation. So, and sometimes we can say something kind to ourselves, and sometimes we can do a small action. Sometimes if you put your hand on your heart, try that with me, everybody, now for a moment, but just put your hand on your heart and feel the warmth of your hand against your chest. And that's a quick way just for you to offer yourself compassion. Like, I am going through a hard time right now. Anybody who is facing what I am facing would also be struggling. That's normal. And as I'm going through these struggles, I am going to be kind to myself. I offer myself kindness and understanding. So putting the hand on the heart can be an action of self-compassion. Some people like to hold their own, clasp their hands together. That reminds us that we're here for ourselves too, in addition to being here for other people as well. Some people like to say positive things to themselves in those moments when things get really stressful, like, I am doing the best I can. I am growing and learning. I am gentle with myself through this very difficult experience. So does anybody have any things like this that they like to say to themselves on a regular basis to kind of help them cope with negative things that they might say to themselves? If you do, we'd love to hear about that. If you want to type that in chat, or if anybody wants to unmute to share with us things that they say to themselves on a regular basis, we'd love to hear it. Doris is sharing, I just call Father Jesus. So reaching out to our spiritual guides, right? To our spiritual supports and asking them for assistance. That's another wonderful way to kind of cope in the heat of the moment. So how about anybody else? Anything else that you like to say to yourself that's positive when you're having these strong emotions? We'd love to hear about that. And this is actually a good little exercise for us to do too. And you're going to get a worksheet at the end where you can write down things that kind of speak to you, that you can kind of grab onto when you're in the heat of experiencing a difficult emotion. So another thing that we can do too is to examine and evaluate. In addition to paying attention to how we're doing, let's stop and think about what's going on, right? What contributed to your anger? And what change may I be able to make to help prevent this situation in the future? Like Raymond, I think the example that you shared was excellent, that you don't take your wife grocery shopping anymore because you did that a lot and it was very frustrating. And you finally realized this is just not going to work for me anymore. So now you probably have your wife at home and you can go and you can grocery shop in peace. So that's an excellent example of examining and evaluating, then coming up with another plan to kind of prevent that trigger from happening in the future. So for everybody who is here, think about those situations in your life that are most problematic for you and feed your anger. And then think about what could I change to kind of prevent that? And this is going to be different for all of us based on what our circumstances are, right? You know, maybe if you had, for all of us, you know, lots of us feel pinched. We have no time for ourselves. We spend the entire day waiting on our loved one, cleaning the house, cooking, doing the finances. We don't get a minute to breathe for ourselves. So I know when that happens to me, I get very short. I get very irritable. I feel very worn out. And as the day goes on, it gets worse for me. So by 7 o'clock at night, I'm screaming at everybody. So, you know, I know what helps me is if I get a little bit of time for myself earlier in the day where I can just do whatever I need to do for myself. So for me, thinking about that and planning ahead about how can I get that time, protected time for myself, helps me have that more patience later on in the day. So that might be the case for you as well. You know, utilizing respite time, and I'm sure Marlene is here to help everybody figure out how they can get good respite time for themselves. That can give us more energy for what we have to do for our loved one as well. So
And
sometimes,
food
oh,
shopping is respite.
I'm sorry, Marlene, go ahead.
I think sometimes food shopping is respite, like getting out there and just being by ourselves and doing it. If we could reframe it to saying, okay, I'm gonna have a little alone time and go to the food store by myself. Like, I think if we reframe it that way, that could be seen as respite.
Yeah, 100%. And for many of us, it's well, for all of us, it's good to have protected time, no matter what we're doing, where we're not having to worry about anybody else. So maybe that's something we need to think about. What can I restructure in my life? Who can I ask for help so I can get a little bit of that time, which may help me not be angry at other times during the day. So if you did have an episode where you did blow up and get angry at your loved one, what could you have done differently? Just look back on it. Have compassion for yourself. I did the best I could in that situation at that moment, considering everything that was going on. But what may I have done differently? What was in my control and what was out of my control? Being realistic about that for many of us, and I'm thinking about our friend, I think Larry, who shared about his wife moving everything in the drawers all day long and not being able to find anything, right? You know, can we really control our loved one from doing that? You know, probably not. They want to be busy and they're just going to be moving everything all day long. So sometimes part of that is understanding what we can and can't control and then changing our expectations. So when you open that drawer, realizing, oh, goodness gracious, I don't know what I'm going to find in here today. So, or taking all your things that are important and you might have to stick them in another container somewhere where your loved one doesn't know where they are, right? So you switching up your expectations. I know she's not going to be able to control moving things around. So I'm going to do this. So when I need to find my razor or find my toothpaste, I'm not going to be frustrated by that. So, and this is going to be different for all of us, right? We're not going to be able to do this in the moment. In the moment, we're doing self-regulating techniques like walking out of the room, doing our breathing, or doing something physical. But after the event, we can stop and look back to say what happened, what contributed to that, and what could I do differently? It might be really something simple like you are sleep deprived. If you're like me, if I do not get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I am so short and irritable with everyone for the rest of the day. So many of us, when we are caregiving, we are not getting enough sleep, right? So maybe that means, maybe it's because our loved one is up, throughout the night. So maybe that means we to talk with our loved one's doctor to help figure out what we can do to get them to sleep more so we can sleep. Or maybe it's because we're up and we're anxious and worrying about everything in the middle of the night, which happens with many of us. So then maybe we think about connecting with a therapist or going to a support group, that will be some support for us, or writing in a journal, and that might help relieve some of our anxiety and our thoughts so we can get a better night's sleep. So stop and think about what we can and what we can't control. So I'm going to move on here just because we're running out of time here. So, but I'd like everybody to think, and you don't have to share this. If anybody wants to, you can. Oh, we have a response from Patricia here. In response to your questions earlier, when I'm trying to get something done, but my mom or someone is in my way, I turn around and do something else. When it is clear, I get the first thing done. For example, getting dinner on the table. When I try to bring dishes to table and my mom is walking slow to the table, I turn around to the kitchen and do something else to prepare dinner on the table. Then when she gets to the table and my path is clear, I can bring dishes and the meal to the table. Wonderful example, Patricia. Thank you so much for sharing that. It seems like you were really able to identify triggers when your mom is kind of in your way and you realized you weren't going to be able to change your mom. So you kind of changed the way that you did things so things would go much smoother for you. That it is an excellent example. So thank you for sharing that. And all of us who are here, I'm sure we have examples like this too. So think about something like Patricia shared about the getting ready for dinner. What's something in your life? Like what's a trigger that you want to work on? Like Raymond shared before too, like grocery shopping was really a trigger for him. So he changed things there. So he doesn't have that trigger anymore. But maybe he has other triggers and we'd all do. So think about a trigger that you want to work on. Identify that, and there's going to be time for you on your handout that you get to kind of work on this as well. And then think about how can you plan ahead to reduce or avoid that trigger. Maybe your loved one has difficulty getting dressed in the morning. It takes them forever because they're rummaging through everything in the closet, right? And you really need to get them out the door for the doctor's appointment. So that might be a trigger. So planning ahead might be that you lay their clothes out for them on the bed and say, here, honey, this is what you're going to wear tomorrow. This is what you wanted to wear. And then that might avoid them rummaging through the closet. So that's an example of kind of planning ahead to kind of reduce a trigger. So everybody just think about one thing that you might be able to do to reduce or avoid a trigger. If anybody wants to pop anything in our chat there, please go ahead and do that about something that they're thinking about related to a trigger. And while everybody's doing that, I'm going to just go on here and we're just going to quickly mention some things here too. And strengthening our supports on all levels can help us have more emotional resilience. And what does that mean? It means coming to things like this here today, which is wonderful, where we can learn and connect with other people. It might mean going to a support group where you can hear other people talk about this stuff all the time, how they're struggling too, and get tips from them. It might mean seeing a counselor one-on-one. It could be having respite. Your loved one goes to an adult day program, or maybe away for a few days, or you go away for a few days and family comes and stays with your loved one so you can get a little break as well. Because we need our own social connections, right? We need to have our own life. One of our friends mentioned that, their whole life is consumed by caregiving. And I think many people can relate to that. we need to have our own friends and we need to have a life outside of providing care for our loved one as well. So finding ways to be able to engage in that is very, very important. So, and how do we build our resilience? We have to keep working at this. It doesn't happen all at once. So part of it is building a supportive daily routine. So be proactive. You know, what are the things that you need to do every day to keep yourself well? You know, basic things, you know, and just give me a hand wave here if you can relate to any of the things here. Does anybody here ever skip a meal during the day because you don't have time to feed yourself? You're busy doing things for everybody else. You know, probably many of us do miss meals because we don't have time. How about does everybody here get, Patricia's raising her hand to that. Do you typically get 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep? Most of us probably don't, right? You know, sometimes it's hard to get that. Do you put off going to the doctors for your own health needs? Many of us do. Yes, because we don't have time. And when was the last time you were on a vacation? For many of us, it's probably been a long time, right? So doing things on a regular basis is very, very important for us to help us keep well. So be proactive about your own wellness. So as we're wrapping up here, I'd love to hear from you. What do you need to be physically, mentally, and spiritually well? So feel free to type in chat, or if you want to unmute your microphone and share with us, we'd love to hear that as well. But what are some things that you need to do on a daily basis to help you be well? Because these things are important for our ability to provide emotional regulation for ourselves as well. Anybody have anything they'd like to share? Anything that you'd like to eat? Anything, you know, spiritual practices that you engage in? Social things that you like to do? What do you like to do that helps you be well on a regular basis?
Raymond here. I am a member of a self-help group. I've been going to this group for years. I'm in recovery, and I have a lot of people around me who give me positive input and positive support. So that's something I do on a regular basis. I probably go out to my meetings 3 to 4 times a week. So that's what I
Wonderful.
do.
Wonderful, Raymond. So keeping up with your own wellness goals, right? And the people who support you in that, that's wonderful. That provides a solid foundation for being able to manage all the emotions that come up. For myself, I like to sit down and write in a journal for maybe 5 minutes in the morning, and that really helps set my day up for success. If I don't, I'm not able to kind of, you know, help myself during the day. And Doris is sharing reading scriptures, yoga, eating healthy, and having a great support systems with my parents' aides. Wonderful, thank you. And Patricia is sharing need to try to do meditation online group weekly. Thank you. So
Sorry,
that
Kathy?
means, yes, please share. Hi, Larry.
I run every morning the whole year round. So I'm up at 5:30 and I'm at the lake at 6 o'clock. So I just find that I solve all my problems, my world's problems and everything while I run. Of course, I come home and things go back to the way they were, but at least for that hour, I felt much better.
Right,
And
good,
I
excellent.
just wanted to share one thing with you, how ironic. I'm in here listening to this and my wife's in the bathroom, I hear, rearranging the drawers right now. So I can't win for anything. I hear her moving around and things like that. And I
Right.
said, the one thing I wanted to say when we had a lady from speech cognitive from Fox Rehab, I told her about the frustration. So she wrote an index card and says, do not move. Okay. So she tells me to put it on certain things. Of course, then my wife will question me, why do you have that on here? Because she'll move it. So
Right,
I try. So.
right. Well, Larry, thank you for sharing that. And that's wonderful that you do something every day and you're committed to that because it supports your health and it supports you mentally as well. So, and I'm sure many people have things like that they are doing. So keep doing those things. And if there's something that you want to try after our discussion today, commit to doing that. Sometimes just adding one small thing to your daily routine or your weekly routine that supports you can help with your emotional regulation as well. So on your handout, and Marlene, that feeling wheel is on like the third page of that handout that I sent to you. If you go down in there, you'll see that, everybody. The handout that you have is about 4 pages long, and there's a big one whole page. I don't know if it's going to show here. Doesn't show on the, trying to get you to see it here, but it doesn't work when you try to hold it up on Zoom. But you've got a whole big feeling wheel on there. So you can look back, you can review all of this. There's going to be a section on there where you can think about this stuff in your own life. So think about like a self-calming strategy that you want to try. Think about a trigger that you want to work on. And then you can come up with a plan on how I'm going to manage that trigger. And there's also space on there for you to think about, what do I want to do on a regular basis to help build my resilience? And Marlene's here for you, I know, to continue the conversation on these very important topics, because sometimes we need supporters to kind of help us figure this stuff out too. So we talked about a few things here today. We talked about some strategies that we can use to support ourselves in managing our emotions. We talked about being self-aware. We talked about trying self-regulation techniques like breathing, walking out of the room, or doing something physical. We talked about being kind to ourselves and practicing self-compassion. We talked about looking at problematic situations and evaluating to think, what can we do to kind of prevent that from happening? And we talked about doing things to strengthen our supports as well. So I'd love to hear from everyone as we're wrapping up here in chat, or you can unmute if you want to. But what is one thing from what we talked about today that you might like to try on a regular basis for yourself? Anything that you might want to try that we talked about today to help you manage your anger or other challenging emotions?
This is
Uh,
this is Doris. I'm going to try to get back to journaling maybe in the evening, so your mind kind of releases any stress that you had throughout the day.
Oh, thank you, Doris. Wonderful. So committing to a daily practice like that where you can get in touch with your feelings. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, this is Terry. And one of the things that I'd like to practice on a regular basis is self-compassion, because I beat myself up, coming and going about, not doing it right, or losing my temper, or, I rarely think about, friends will say to me, Terry, you're doing the best you can. And, I kind of make a face because, in my opinion, I'm not. So that's
Thank you. Thank you, Terry, for sharing that. So true. And I think many of us can relate to what you are sharing. So there's a section on the handout just on self-compassion and gratitude. And there's a wonderful website you can check out where there are lots of like guided meditations you can do on self-compassion too. Lots of good supports with that as well. So, and also for a friend who mentioned journaling, we've got a wellness toolkit on journaling too. You can check out that link as well. And that's on page 4. And our friend Patricia is sharing exercise and journaling as well. How about anybody else? Anything from what we talked about today that you want to give a try for yourself going forward to help deal with overwhelming emotions? Well, keep thinking, everybody. Marlene's going to send you the handout. It's going to be a chance for you to kind of integrate some of the things that we talked about into your daily caregiving routine. I want to thank everybody for being here today. And we're here to support you at Care to Caregivers. You can call and talk with our peer supporters who have been caregivers themselves, so they know what you're going through, and they're there to provide one-on-one support for you as well. And I think Marlene's going to send to you an email afterwards with the handout and our brochure. And if you could take a quick minute, it's quick 3 questions. You can point your phone at this little square thing here, or just click the link that's going to be on the email and let us know what you think about today. That helps us improve our programs for the future. So thank you everyone for being here. And I'm going to turn it back over to Marlene here if she has any wrap-up words for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mary
you.
Thank you.
Catherine, that was wonderful. And in our support group, we talked last time very much about things like this and mindfulness, as I had told you. So thank you so much for this timely discussion. And for those people that were on that haven't been to the support group and need more discussions like this, you know, we do have a group every Thursday virtually, but thank you so much, Mary Catherine. It was really wonderful. And thank you for everybody for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlene. Take care.
Thank you, friends, and be well.
Thanks, everyone.
Mary Catherine.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.